Hey, how's it going, everybody? This is Titus Valspar, and today I'm going to be breaking down some of the heavy attacks, or I guess the nature of the heavy attacks of all the champions in game, just because there's a lot of variety inside the styles of the heavy attacks. I mean, you've got anywhere between 1 and 5 hits for any of the champions in game, and a couple of different variations in styles and distances. Now, the reason I wanted to break this down is because of the nature of the event quest that's currently going on with Ant-Man. And I would jump into that, but I've just to show you kind of what I'm talking about. But I do have my characters in a story quest and just used up the last of my energy. So the basically one of the things that I found that's been the most useful or helpful with that event is to focus on using champions that have multiple hits in their heavy attacks, because it allows you to a little bit better intercept kind of charging attacks, especially because of the bonus that comes with in this, which is specific to this event, but the bonus that comes for charging your heavy attacks as well as not taking damage back from glancing blows. However, this is just kind of a useful thing to know as well as far as the nature of the heavy attacks. So I'll just kind of break down. We'll jump into some quick fights here, just to go over the different areas of heavy attacks and their nature. And I've got 11 different categories that we'll kind of breeze through pretty quick. And I'm not going to list every single character because a lot of them are pretty repetitive, and for the most part, 70 to 80% of the characters fit into one of two different categories. So I'll just kind of give a brief overview of those as we get into them. But to start things off, we'll just kind of start from the low end and work our way higher. So one of the first group that I want to kind of outline is characters that have one hit in their heavy attack, and kind of one of the better examples for this. Let's go ahead and pull out one of the community's favorite characters just to kind of show this. So we'll jump in with Luke Cage because he has just one hit in his heavy attack, and this is the group that I like to call the short one hit heavy attack. And you'll kind of see what I mean as we get into the fight with this rocket here. So the heavy attack comprises of one single hit, where he doesn't really move from the position that he's in. Like, he takes kind of a half step forward type of thing, but it's not one that makes up a lot of ground. So that's kind of what I mean by that. And I really don't care if I win or lose this fight per se, but just kind of the nature of the heavy attack I'll show you again here is that he charges and then he kind of takes a step forward, but it's not a very far step, or doesn't make up a whole lot of ground. So, I mean, that's kind of the generic breakdown. And this does encompass a kind of a wide aspect of a lot of different characters in game, though it's not the largest group. But this includes a lot of different characters, just to name a few. So we just kind of showcased Luke Cage, Drax, Ultron, Rhino, King Groot, Joe Fixit, Kamala Khan, as much as we all love her, and even characters like Hela and Phoenix, Quake, even though her special attack is very different in its nature, and Spider-Gwen. Just to name a few, there's a lot more that fit into this category of the one-hit short heavy attack. And there is a little bit of a smaller offset group that have the one-hit heavy attacks, which I'll kind of go ahead and showcase now in another little segment here. And this is just a group that I feel has a little bit of a more extended reach in their heavy attack. And one of the best examples of this uh, type of a heavy attack is Kingpin. And this is a much smaller group of the one-hit heavy attacks, but I personally feel like they have a bit more reach with how far their heavy attack goes. So I've classed these ones as being the one-hit medium. Now, one of the things that you'll notice here with Kingpin is that he has a very kind of distinct jump forward as he does that, and as he performs that heavy attack. So I'll see if I can get Yondu to rush into my block again, because you can't parry Yondu's arrow. See how he kind of jumps forward there. And that's kind of what I mean by he's just got an extended reach with that heavy attack. And like I said, I really don't care if I win or lose this fight, but it's more to just showcase the nature of the heavy attack itself. But the characters that have this one hit in their medium attack, but a little bit of a further reach, I have these grouped together as being Kingpin, Ronin, Thor, and Thor Jane Foster, as well as Moon Knight. Just because as they charge that heavy attack, they have this leap that carries them forward. I mean, you could technically classify maybe Phoenix and Rogue in this category as well. The reason I don't like to put Rogue specifically in this one is because though she does lean very far forward, she backs off quite heavily and ends up about in the same place where she was when she initiated the heavy attack. And Phoenix is kind of an interesting case because she is a smaller character. So I feel like she moves forward in a large scale in comparison to her, but doesn't quite get as much out of it as the rest of those characters. So that's really all that I have for the one hit characters. Now there's a the vast majority of characters in the game currently revolve around two-hit combos. And here's what I mean by that. There's three different groups that I've classed these into, kind of similar, where I have the ones that do a short attack. There's the ones that have a medium attack, and then there's a couple of them that have a long attack as far as the reach on that heavy attack. And a lot of them do follow the same style. So I'll just kind of show you what I mean by the two-hit short attack. So I've got I wanted to pull my Black Panther into this one. I've got a couple of them, so we'll just use the 3-star for simplicity's sake. But what I meant by the two-hit short combo, and this is going to be a little more difficult where the target's Rogue. But the two-hit, the short heavy attack, you know, there's a lot of them that have that style where they'll kind of do that mid-air flip, but they don't really move too far forward in regards to how far that reaches. And again, I don't really care if I win or lose this fight. It's mainly just to showcase the nature of that heavy attack. So they flip there, and then they don't really have a whole lot of reach on the area that they affect. And the hits on that heavy attack are pretty simultaneous, where they take place about at the same time. And again, the reach isn't super far on that. You'll see there. how the reach doesn't go quite as far as some of the other characters in game here. And I'm just going to quit out of this fight because I know it's already lost. But that's kind of what I mean. And a couple of examples for that particular fight are, you've got Black Panther, Captain America, and Captain America World War II fit in there. You also have both of the Cyclops, both of the Daredevils, as well as a Hawkeye and Winter Soldier Wolverine. There's a couple of outliers in that group, such as Cable, who he has 2 hits, but it's kind of interesting because he has a little bit of an extended reach on his heavy attack, so it's a very different style, but I still feel like it's kind of short. And another example of that would be Green Goblin, and he's very interesting in that regard because as he performs that heavy attack, he kind of dashes in and then retreats on the second hit. So I like to label him in that short category as well because it doesn't leave him closer to the enemy than what it was previously. But that's the smaller or the smaller and shorter group, I suppose. But a lot of characters fall into the 2-hit medium attacks, and there's a lot of different variety in this group. But one of which is a very good showcase is Star-Lord, and a lot of characters follow this this model, though there is a lot of variety in the 2-hit medium combo, as we'll kind of see here in just a moment. So Star-Lord's heavy attack, you'll see he has kind of 2 different sections where he leaps and bounds forward on that attack. And that's why I feel like him and a bunch of the other characters fit into the category of a 2-hit, more of a medium range. And this does have quite a bit of variety to it, as far as the styles from other characters in the game. For example, you have Dormammu, who goes forward with kind of his both of his palm hits. There's a lot of them that have the same kind of style as Star-Lord, so you have all of the different variants of Deadpool, and as well as Venompool, who takes on that type of heavy attack. But then you have a couple of different styles that fit in there as well, such as Red Hulk, who takes a step or 2 forward but has a very unique animation. Black Panther Civil War, who kind of does his backflip into that. You have Dr. Octopus, who swings around his mechanical arms and does 2 separate hits there. You have Nightcrawler, who lunges forward with his sword. Or you have Old Man Logan, another good example of that, where he kind of leans forward in 2 separate punches and takes a step forward, it seems, on both of those. Or another really good example of that would be Vision, as he kind of leans in with both of his hits. The whole purpose of this group, which is a much larger group, it has more characters than any other. As far as the 2-hit characters, they have a medium range on their heavy attack. There's just a lot more of an expansive reach, but not quite as long as some of the other characters. And this is the most diverse as far as a lot of the different hit styles. So the other groups going forward are a lot smaller, with a lot more of a niche explanation of how their heavy attacks work, and a lot of these are some of the ones that I feel are a lot better for using in the light of this event quest, just because of the nature of their heavy attack, because there's different stages to it. So it's very unique, and a lot of times that your opponent, if you throw a heavy attack and there's a moment in there where there's a pause before the rest of the attack resumes, your opponent won't rush into it. So there's a kind of a sense of security, as well as a lot of them having some more of an extended reach. So the characters that have a 2-hit long reach on those heavy attacks, they're a very small list, where you have Punisher 2099, Thor, and Psylocke as some of the more some of the ones that have more of an outlier in this group. And this is kind of what I mean by that as we jump in here against this Spider-Man. And Punisher has this thing where it's a little bit unique, if you will, because based off of his battery charge, you can actually get a stun off of it as well. So what I mean by his heavy attack having a long reach is he slides all the way across the floor when he performs this heavy attack, and he has quite an extended reach with that. So you saw the first part of that heavy attack. I wasn't even anywhere close to my opponent, but still ended up getting the hit on him. So Punisher 2099 has a very unique special attack where he has a very extended reach with that, and the only other characters that perform attacks in that way are Thor Ragnarok and Psylocke, where they'll kind of very far and quickly lunge forward and gain a lot of ground on that heavy attack. And so those could be some really good options for that event quest, but there are a couple of them that I believe to be a bit better. Now we get into some of the 3-hit combos, which is a very unique and small group. I have these grouped into the 3-hit mediums and the 3-hit larges. The 3-hit larges I feel work better for this event quest, but for explanation's sake, I'll go ahead and showcase what the 3-hit mediums are. One of these characters being Gwenpool, and you'll kind of see what I mean by this. And I had previously these grouped into 3-hit mediums and 3-hit smalls, but decided to group them all together in 3-hit mediums because of the animation that you kind of see. So this is kind of what that looks like. You'll notice that Gwenpool kind of stumbles forward. I don't feel like she has as much of a reach as some of the other characters on her heavy attack. And the fact that the hits go on a little bit quicker also kind of discouraged me from placing her in the 3-hit long category. But there's a couple of characters that have a very similar animation with those heavy attacks. So you have Archangel, you have Ghost Rider, you have Hood, and Gwenpool. Those are really the only ones that I have grouped into that section. And Hood's very different than the others, but he does have a little bit more of a reach as he kind of powers up and slides in to his heavy attack. But the other ones all have kind of this 3-strip twist or twirl on their attacks. But it doesn't really give you enough of a window in the light of this event quest with Ant-Man to make them be effective. So some of the characters that I found to be the best with this event quest are in the 3-hit long category. And this again is a relatively small group, but they do have some pauses in their heavy attacks that prove to be quite useful. So one of the examples for this is Void, and I'll show you what I mean by his heavy attack having 3 different parts and a bit of a long reach. He just makes up a lot of ground when throwing his heavy attack. And there's really only 3 other characters apart from Void that have this kind of style, where he kind of lunges forward in 3 separate areas to perform that heavy attack. And a couple of the others do have a bit of a better reach than he does. But he still makes up quite a bit of ground when performing that heavy attack. So and apart from his, well, it's a passive ability that's a little bit stronger um, if you have his ability awakened, but just kind of that passive chisel damage with all of the debuffs that he applies on the opponent. So the only other characters that have kind of that 3-hit with a pause in between each of the hits, as well as making up a lot of ground on those hits, are you have Blade, you have Corvus Glaive, Iron Man Infinity War, and Void. So a lot of these characters are a lot newer, but personally, at least for me, the 5-star Blade that I have was instrumental in taking down that Ant-Man. Not because, well, he wasn't actually useful at all with the fact that the final Ant-Man in that chapter is immune to bleed, but because he has such an extended reach while performing that heavy attack, he was able to take advantage of the bulk up node and increase his attack, as well as being a medium character where those heavy attacks wouldn't glance because of the nature of one of the other nodes in the event, so I wouldn't take any damage back off of that. Again, that's purely for the use of that event quest, but I've found that this particular group of characters can be incredibly helpful for that. Now now we're getting into a smaller or niche of the characters, the ones that have 4-hit combos. These I classified into 3 separate groups. I have the 4-hit short characters, which is a very, very unique group that actually only classifies to the small characters in game, and you'll see what I mean by the 4-hit small group. But for example, these are characters like Black Widow, Captain Marvel, Gamora, Magic, Miss Marvel, Scarlet Witch, and Storm, and they all have the same heavy attack animation, which is this 4-hit leg twirl. And you'll see that yes, there's 4 separate hits in it, but they don't make up a whole lot of ground while performing it, which is why I've got that listed as kind of being a short reach on those attacks. So that's a very, very small group. Again, these characters I wouldn't list as being useful in the light of that event quest, but potentially useful in other areas, especially where they have that pause between the first and second hit, and then the second, third, and fourth hit all come in pretty rapid succession afterwards. So, continuing on with the characters that have 4 hits in their combos, I've got the medium group, which is a very, very small group of characters that really only comprises of MODOK and Sabretooth. And the reason that I say that these characters have a medium range on their heavy attacks is MODOK's more for his reach and the animation itself, and Sabretooth lunges forward a bit, but not quite as far as some of the other characters. But you'll see MODOK here, he very kind of aggressively lunges forward with his heavy attack, and has the 4 different parts of the attack itself. So that's kind of medium. He could very potentially be useful against that Ant-Man, especially where he deals incinerate damage off of that. Do keep in mind that for the light of that event quest, Ant-Man does have limber, so you can't rely too much on the parry stunning, but heavy attack baiting into a heavy attack that you release could be fairly useful, not just in that event quest, but in a lot of the other quest lines that come up. If you can learn how to intercept a heavy attack with a heavy attack, especially some of these that have kind of a longer reach, could be quite useful to pick up. Not the greatest per se, but definitely useful. So we're kind of tailing out of the 4-hit combos here. The 4-hit long characters, I've really only got 3 characters that fit into this one. 2 of them have the exact same animation, then one of them is a brand new character, being Massacre, who has a kind of unique 4-hit combo with how he does that. But the other 2 are Electra and X-23. So I'll grab my 3-star X-23 here and show you what I mean by that animation. It's a very unique animation to these 2 characters, but it makes up a lot of ground while they're performing it. So these can be very useful for covering a lot of ground here. So you'll see there's 2 hits and then followed by 2 more hits as she kind of lunges forward. And a lot of different openings there where these hits can be performed, and she just makes up a lot of ground while performing those. So she could be incredibly useful for this event quest, especially where she has that regen function. But Electra is the same style, and then Massacre also has 4 hits in his heavy attack, though the animations are a bit different on that one. Now the last group that I have is a very particular group where they have 5 hits in their combos.
Hi.
And those groups are, or those characters are Hyperion and Howard the Duck. And Hyperion's heavy attack is very well known, so I will kind of showcase what Howard the Duck's looks like, just because Hyperion's is a lot more useful because it procs the Fury buffs and makes up a lot of ground. Hyperion's, or Howard the Duck's, does the same kind of thing with a bit of a different animation. So you'll see that he kind of just marches forward with 5 separate hits in that heavy attack. So just with kind of 5 different steps and twisting his arms around there,
You're going to head over to basketball.
He just kind of marches forward with those hits there. In Hyperion's, he has kind of that first hit and then followed up by the other 4 quite rapidly, where he closes a lot of ground there. But these 2 characters could very easily be used in light of this event quest. To kind of make up some ground there. But that's really it as far as the different characters that are available, or the heavy attacks that are classified to them. And like I said, the ones that you want to prioritize are some of the ones that have the longer reach, and preferably where you can have some of those interludes, where like there's a portion of the attack that takes place and the rest of it is kind of dragged out. So prioritize and even for other parts of questing, just because I've noticed that the opponent doesn't as readily attack back onto these characters. So some of the better ones to practice these tactics with are Blade, Corvus Glaive, Iron Man Infinity War, Void, MODOK, Sabretooth, Massacre, Electra, X-23, Howard the Duck, and Hyperion, just because of the nature of their attacks. You could potentially get the same thing to work with Punisher 2099, Thor Ragnarok, and Psylocke, but it's a very niche group of characters where this animation works best in your favor. So that would be my recommendation for the current event quest, as well as just kind of the smart use of heavy attack baiting in future areas as well. So that's really all I have for you. Hopefully this has been helpful and you can apply that knowledge in your favor. and I will catch you on the next video. Thanks, and have a fantastic day.